Please adhere to YouTube's selected guidelines before viewing the content of this video. I do not encourage or condone any products, actions, or behaviors shown in this video. All videos are produced in a safe, professional, and controlled environment. Please do not attempt to replicate any actions performed during the video. All actions are performed by professionals.
How's it going, y'all? A couple months back, Marlboro introduced a new line of cigarettes dubbed the Cowboy Cuts. This was, in my opinion, a very interesting choice, because Marlboro does not introduce new lines of cigarettes very often, and when they do introduce a new line of cigarettes, there tends to be a pretty easy reason as to why. Whether it be market loss or whether it be them trying to reach a new market, there's generally a reason why Marlboro introduces a new line. And I personally think the new Cowboy Cut line of Marlboros is very much a sign of the times. Cigarettes in general have gotten more expensive, but in specific, Marlboros especially have gotten far too expensive for what they are. In my local area, for example, a fresh pack of normal mainline Marlboro Reds costs around about $9.50 on average. That is very expensive for what you get, if you ask me. That is almost 50 cents a cigarette, which is way too much for the quality that Marlboro has, if you ask me. But I personally think that due to the price increases that Marlboro as a brand has seen over the last couple years, and due to Philip Morris positioning Marlboro as being somewhat of a high-end cigarette when compared to others available at gas stations, that they have seen a decline in new consumers reaching their brand because, well, they're too expensive for a lot of people to want to spend money on these days. And the new Marlboro Cowboy Cut line is meant to fix this issue, because the new line of Marlboro Cowboy Cuts, which range anywhere from a red to a gold to a silver, from full flavored to ultra light, are not a high-end Marlboro line. They are instead a line of mid-range budget Marlboros that are meant to compete with brands like, let's say, Pall Mall and L&M, for example. This really is a sign of the times. The introduction of the Marlboro Cowboy Cut line really is a sign of the times, and it is very telling that Philip Morris, the owner of Marlboro as a brand, is feeling the need to introduce a budget cigarette into their main money maker, because maybe their main money maker is not making all that much money anymore. I don't know. I think Marlboro as a brand is still making plenty of money, personally speaking, but maybe not as much money as Philip Morris wants, and so as such, they're willing to experiment just a little bit, and I think that's where the new Marlboro Cowboy Cut line comes into play. The questions I have for the cigarette I have with me today are very simple. Are these a quality Marlboro product with the quality that I have come to expect from Marlboro cigarettes, or are they simply a rebranded low-quality budget cigarette that they've slapped Marlboro logos on? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to finding out, and overall, so far, I have heard good things about the Marlboro Cowboy Cut line, and so as such, I am looking forward to smoking and reviewing the Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100s today, and I'm looking forward to finding out just how they are, what they're like, and what I personally think of them. Will I enjoy them? Will I not? Will I think they're good for the price I paid, which was $7.21 for this pack right here, a whole $2 less than normal mainline Marlboro Reds? I don't know, but I am very excited to find out. And I do suppose, without further ado, after I thank the sponsor of today's video, I should probably go ahead and quickly start covering the packaging of the, well, Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100s. Then after that, I'm going to go ahead and get the cellophane all off. I'm going to get the pack all opened up, and I'm going to take a look at the cigarettes inside this pack and see just what they look like, what they feel like, and what the quality of them is like. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and get one of these all lit up for the very first time and find out just how they actually are and what I personally think of them. And once I'm done smoking, once I've gotten my fill of nicotine, I will then give you guys my final thoughts on this pack of cigarettes, give you guys my final thoughts and first impressions on the Marlboro Cowboy Cut line as a whole. And then after that, I am going to give this specific pack a rating as well. But first off, as said, we need to start off by thanking the sponsor of today's video, which just so happens to actually be me, as my new poetry book, Poems to Read While Smoking Cigarettes, is out and available now. The poems within my new poetry book are not good poems by any means, but they are good poems to read while smoking cigarettes. And if you guys are interested in checking out my new poetry book, Poems to Read While Smoking Cigarettes, of course, I do highly recommend you check it out at the links in the description and comments down below. It's available now for $14.99 on Amazon, and of course, I highly recommend checking out and picking up my new poetry book. Make sure to go check it out if y'all are interested. Now, with the sponsored segment of this video all done, I do suppose, without further ado, I should probably go ahead and start covering the packaging of the Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100 cigarettes that I have with me today. And let's go ahead and first off cover the general shape of the packaging. We can see that this is indeed a hard pack of cigarettes with 100 sizing, and overall it's nothing too special shape-wise or anything like that kind of thing. This is just a standard hard pack of cigarettes with hard corners, and it's in the 100 size. Of course, for the shorts, you're going to get a short size, but pretty much the same construction in regards to the packaging as a whole. And in regards to the actual design of this pack, we can see it is a little bit different, but still very similar to normal mainline Marlboro Red cigarettes and to other not mainline Marlboro Red cigarettes, like let's say the Marlboro Red labels, for example. One major difference we can see at a glance between this pack and the normal Marlboro mainline cigarettes is just the fact that the Marlboro ribbon up here on the top does not stretch all the way down to the edge of the packaging. It stops a little bit before the edge, and so we get this white border going around it on either side right there. And that is meant to distinguish this pack from the normal mainline Marlboro Reds, of course, I do suppose. But some other differences we can see is in the background of the red up here. We can see that that red background is a little bit of, in my opinion, a darker red than the mainline Marlboro Reds, in my personal opinion. And the texture it has, while it is a little bit hard to see under the cellophane, it is that of a sort of wood-like grain texture, if you ask me. And that is a very interesting choice. They're really trying to go for the whole sort of rustic look and feel with this pack, in my personal opinion, with that sort of wood grain design on the Marlboro ribbon red design itself right here. And of course, that kind of ties in with the name of this line, the Cowboy Cuts, after all. And from what I can tell, the other Marlboro Cowboy Cut cigarettes, the shorts of this, along with the golds and the silvers as well, the lights and ultralights respectively, also do have that sort of wood grain texture or pattern going on the Marlboro ribbon design just right here, which is pretty interesting in my personal opinion, and is a sign that they are very much trying to make this pack look a little bit more rustic, a little bit more old school, and they're really trying to, what's the right way of putting it? They're really trying to make people think of the Marlboro Man with this packaging, with the rusticness of it, with the name of it, without actually mentioning the Marlboro Man. Because if they mention the Marlboro Man today or created any sort of Marlboro Man advertising today that they displayed on television or on radio or on social media as a whole, there would be a pretty big storm, both legally and from many different groups out there. So they're really trying to just harken back to those days with the Marlboro Man, with the packaging, without actually directly mentioning the Marlboro Man himself. If you ask me, in my opinion, a pretty smart choice when it comes to branding, I will acknowledge. But yes, we can see the Marlboro ribbon itself just right up here. We can see that wood grain, sort of darker red sort of color right here. And right below the Marlboro ribbon, we can see there is, or right below the red background of the Marlboro ribbon, I do suppose is really the right way of putting it, we can see that there is a black line just right here. So there's a black line on the bottom of the Marlboro ribbon. Now, when I first looked at this packaging, I was trying to figure out, why did they use a black line? Maybe they just wanted to emphasize this a little bit more kind of thing. Why did they use a black line? That's not something you see on normal mainline Marlboro Reds, and this is a product that is meant to get people in the door to eventually get to smoking the mainline Marlboro Red. So why would they put a black ribbon on there? Is it for maybe they want to make sure people don't get confused kind of thing and think that this is the normal Marlboro Reds kind of thing. No, it's none of that in my personal opinion. In my opinion, this is their way of making sure that people know that this is a budget Marlboro cigarette and that they are more closely aligned with, quite possibly, the Marlboro Black line than with the normal mainline Marlboro Reds. The Marlboro Blacks, for many years, that line from Marlboro has been their budget line per se, but they have always been a bit different than the normal mainline Marlboro Reds, both in taste and in strength. So in my opinion, by them putting a black line on this packaging right here, right below the Marlboro ribbon, this is them trying to bridge the gap between, like, let's say, the Marlboro Blacks and the Marlboro Red labels, which then lead into the Marlboro Red mainline cigarettes, just the normal Marlboro Reds. So this is them trying to bridge that gap, in my personal opinion. Now, I'm just a guy on the internet. I don't, in reality, know what I'm talking about, so don't take what I'm saying as fact. This is all really just educated guesswork from me, but that's really the biggest reason why I can see them using the black sort of area right here, the black sort of border on the bottom of the Marlboro ribbon right here, is to connect this pack to the Marlboro Black line. That really does make the most logical sense to me, I will admit. Of course, within the Marlboro ribbon itself, we see some red text right here that just says filter cigarettes in a rectangular oval sort of shape right there with that white background. And to either side of the Marlboro ribbon, we of course see that white background that leads all the way down to the rest of the packaging. Now, sadly, there's no sort of embossment or recessment on this packaging at all. It's all just flat lettering, which is what it is. You know, I would have loved to have some sort of embossment kind of thing. That's something we see on a lot of mid-range budget cigarettes, but not on this one. You know, it is what it is. It is what it is. But right below the Marlboro ribbon itself, we can see that there is the Philip Morris sort of coat of arms in that sort of dark red, I would say. It doesn't have that sort of woodsy texture to it, but it does just say PM USA right there in the middle. We get a horse on either side, a crown in the center, a little sort of shield in the center right there as well, and then a ribbon stretching across. Yep, just the standard Philip Morris coat of arms right there. And then below that, we get the Marlboro brand name in the standard font. Really nothing too special going on. No sort of new Marlboro font or any sort of new, I would have to say, like a border or background to the Marlboro labeling itself. Just says Marlboro right here in black, as it does on just about every pack of Marlboros sold in America. But below the Marlboro text itself, which is very iconic, we have a slightly less iconic piece of text that says Cowboy Cut right there. And of course, that is the name for this new line of cigarettes that this cigarette is a part of. This text itself is in that sort of, I would have to say, darker red. Actually, to me, it looks like a little bit more of a darker red than the red up here. It looks almost like a sort of purplish color, which is very interesting. But yeah, just says Cowboy Cut right there in a pretty standard font, nothing too crazy, but it is the same font we see being used up here. So there is some brand continuity going on this packaging. And then below the Cowboy Cut name right there, it just says 100s right here, just letting us know exactly what size these are. And then below that, it just says 20 Class A cigarettes in a silvery sort of gray, I would say, or in a gray silver. It's a gray, I do suppose. But yeah, it just says 20 Class A cigarettes right there, trying to imply that these are really high quality cigarettes, when in fact that is actually just a tax designation in the United States. And then below that, we get another red line right there, which is indeed that sort of, I would have to say, dark red once again. There's a lot of design aspects to this packaging that are very similar to the normal mainline Marlboro Reds and are very similar to the Marlboro Red labels as well. The normal mainline Marlboro Reds, of course, we get the Marlboro ribbon and everything like that kind of thing. We get the standard Marlboro text right here, and we get the 20 Class A cigarettes with the red line down here and everything like that kind of thing. There's a lot of really good brand continuity. This looks like a pack of Marlboro Reds through and through, and it looks most similar to the Marlboro Red labels, if I'm remembering correctly at least, because those do indeed have white lines going on either side of the ribbon in the center right here. But of course, the Cowboy Cut text and the actual texture of the red on the ribbon is very different, and just the general color of the red as a whole is very different too. But yeah, in my opinion, a lot to analyze about this packaging right here, I will acknowledge, and they're definitely trying to cut some corners with this packaging, in my personal opinion. Because when I was looking at this packaging, as I was trying to figure out what's going on with it before the video and everything like that kind of thing, I was looking very intensely, and I noticed some things that I think are kind of off quality-wise personally. Now, I haven't really been smoking a lot of Marlboros these days. Maybe this is standard these days, but I noticed on this pack of mid-range budget Marlboros that the black line right here on the bottom of the red Marlboro ribbon right here, you see on this side, it doesn't fully align. It doesn't fully align. And then on this side, it doesn't fully align either. It kind of is a bit too in on this side and a bit too far out on that side. Now, this is something that your general consumer is not going to care about, but this is something that I personally care about. Misaligned prints? Misaligned prints? Come on. Misaligned prints? You're Marlboro. Why are you doing misaligned prints on your packaging kind of thing? I know 99.9% of people don't care, but I care. And to see this be misaligned like that really is just kind of sad, I will acknowledge. That is kind of sad, and I don't know if they're doing that on normal Marlboro mainline packaging these days, but if it's just on this pack, it's a sign that they're definitely spending a little bit less on QA for these packs of cigarettes, hence part of the price, if you ask me. Anything else I'm looking at, like quality-wise on the packaging, that really just screams QA, I would have to say the Cowboy Cut, just like color itself, it doesn't quite align with the red up here. It's more of a purple in my personal opinion. It doesn't look bad by any means, and I don't think that's a QA thing. I think this is a design thing personally, but it does still, to a degree, just kind of make me wonder why that choice was made, I'll admit. But yeah, overall, this packaging, in my personal opinion, it's an okay look, if you ask me. While yes, I do think on one hand, the sort of wood grain texture up on the Marlboro ribbon itself does make this look a little bit more rustic, I'll admit. In my opinion, the wood grain texture, it is more of a cheap wood grain texture than not, and that combined with the black down here really does make this pack look like a mid-range budget pack of Marlboros, in my personal opinion. This sort of wood grain, if you ask me, cheapens the look of this pack of cigarettes. The normal mainline Marlboro Reds and even the Marlboro Red labels to an extent have a very clean look to them. This look, on the other hand, is a little bit less clean. It looks a little bit more like a budget pack of cigarettes, and I think that was absolutely intentional, no question in my mind. This is designed to look like a mid-range budget pack of cigarettes, but a pack of Marlboros nonetheless, and they're trying to harken back to the Marlboro Man with the rusticness and with the name as well. Yeah, a lot to analyze, a lot to look at from this simple bit of packaging, if you ask me. Moving on from the front of the packaging, as I think that's all I had to say for it, we see the back of the packaging, which is exactly the same as the front. It's exactly the same. There are no differences at all. Even the label right here is misaligned just like it was on the front, and the color for everything is exactly the same. Yep, no differences at all. One thing that is worth mentioning, though, is that the wood grain texture itself on the red up here is actually different, though, because that wood grain texture starts right here and wraps all the way around. So the wood grain texture you get on the back of the packaging is not going to be the same as the one you get on the front. So that is one difference between the front and the back of the packaging. But yeah, the back of the packaging, other than that, is the exact same as the front. Moving on to, let's say, this side of the packaging now, we can see we get a white background with a, red right here, a red rectangle right here with a black line underneath. Since this cuts off, it doesn't actually wrap around, but they do keep the branding continuous, which I suppose is pretty good. But yeah, we get that wood grain once again. We get the black line right there, but everything else is just that normal white background in black above the red rectangle, it just says, please don't litter. Then on the rectangle itself, it just says Philip Morris USA, Richmond, Virginia. They have their Marlboro reward stuff and everything like that kind of thing. It just says for product information, here's a call number. And then we just get the barcode down here with the FSC compliancy text just right here as well, just says FSC. And that's how we know that this is indeed a pack of fire-safe cigarettes, even though all cigarettes sold in the United States these days are required to be FSC compliant. And yep, that's all that's going on this side of the packaging. Pretty much just informational. And on the other side, it's pretty much the exact same. Just that this goes down a bit further on this side than on this side. But yeah, pretty much the same packaging as a whole overall. On this side just says underage sale prohibited right there. And then we just get the Surgeon General warning, which just reads, quitting smoking now greatly reduces serious risks to your health. That might be the case, but I'm not gonna quit because I enjoy my cigarettes. I'm dedicated to my cigarettes. I'm committed to my cigarettes. Ain't nothing gonna stop me, and this warning label, it ain't gonna stop me. But yep, that's all that's going on this side of the packaging. Let's go and move on to this side now. As said, the Marlboro ribbon itself right here does indeed wrap all the way around to the other side of the packaging. So we see a design on this pack wrapping around, which is something I really love seeing. I'll admit, I love it when designs wrap around the entirety of the packaging. That's very much what's going on with this cigarette, so I love seeing that. And we can see on the red sort of background with that wood grain texture, we can see in white, it just says Marlboro Cowboy Cut 100s right here, implying that these are, of course, the reds with the red sort of background. And then to that side right here, it just has an advertisement for Marlboro rewards and whatnot kind of thing as well. And that's all that's going on with the top. And then on the bottom itself, we can see we just get a white background. Of course, there's no sort of red that goes anywhere near the background or would loop around or anything like that kind of thing. So it has the black Marlboro text right here in the standard font that we're all used to. Then it just says Cowboy Cuts in that sort of purpley red. And then under that, it just says 100s right there. And to the side, we get some numbers for this pack of cigarettes. Just says V119Z64C1. I don't know how to read Philip Morris date code, so I'm not exactly sure what this number means, but I'm sure it does mean something, and that should be a date code if I do remember correctly. And one other factoid about this packaging that I have avoided talking about so far is the fact that the foil itself, or not the foil itself, the cellophane itself does indeed have a sort of gold rip tab on it, which is pretty interesting in my personal opinion. I can't remember if that's standard for Marlboros. I haven't been smoking a lot of them these days, I'll admit. But yes, we do get a gold rip tab right here just to tell us where to rip. And let's go ahead and do just that. Overall, what is my opinion on the packaging for the Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100s in specific? But the packaging is pretty much identical, just slightly shorter for the shorts. What is my overall opinion on this packaging? I think they've done a good job at making a slightly cheaper looking pack of cigarettes that is still very much trying to harken back to the normal mainline Marlboro Reds, while still looking like a pack of Marlboro Reds. And while also calling for a more sort of rustic visualization, and while also hearkening back to the Marlboro Man at the same time, I think this piece of packaging right here, while in my personal opinion it looks a little bit cheap, while it's not the greatest look in the world, and while it's certainly not nearly as iconic as normal mainline Marlboro Reds, it is a piece of industrial packaging that is designed to look exactly like this on purpose for a reason, and I think that overall they've done a decent job at accomplishing more than likely the goal they set out to accomplish, which was to make a pack of new Marlboro Reds that look distinctly a little bit different, but a little bit cheaper at the same time kind of thing, and are very much hearkening back to Marlboro's history as a brand, I do suppose. I think they have very much accomplished all of those goals. Wow, that was... Why did I just say wow? I was just trying to say now, but then I just said wow, and then I was like, let me try to run with it, but then it didn't really work. I was about to say, now let's go ahead and cover the overall just general quality of the packaging. There's no embossment on this packaging or anything like that kind of thing. Overall, texture-wise, it is very much that of just printed paperboard. Nothing crazy, nothing special going on, as you might expect kind of thing from a mid-range budget pack of cigarettes. They're cutting corners everywhere they can, of course. And overall, quality-wise, the quality, I mean, like, this is a hard corner, hard pack of cigarettes, and it's overall of equivalent quality to other packs like this one. It's about average, which is a good thing in my personal opinion. And overall, does this pack of cigarettes look better with the cellophane on than off? I would have to say this pack of cigarettes looks better with the cellophane off than on, in my personal opinion. Without further ado, I do suppose it is time for me to go ahead and get this pack all opened up, and it's time for me to go and take a look at what the inside of this pack actually looks like now. So let's go ahead and do just that. We can see on the inside of the cigarette lid, we get the Marlboro Rewards number right here. Got my words a little jumbled up. So we get that right there at the very top. And then under that, on the actual packaging right here, we get a white cigarette insert. Pretty basic, no crazy shapes going on. And inside on the cigarettes itself, we get a silver foil with the Marlboro ribbon design on it just right there. This foil itself does indeed have a little bit of a texture, and I would have to say it's a foily texture through and through. A little bit rough on the outside, a little bit smooth on the inside, a little bit more papery on the inside, I would say. Without further ado, let's go and see how easily it pulls out. And pulls out more easily than not. Ripped a little bit unevenly, but more satisfying pull out than not, so I certainly cannot complain. I need a little bit of water real quick, so before I go ahead and actually get a cigarette out, I'm going to take a sip of water, and then after that, we are going to go ahead and take a look at the Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100s. Much better, much better. I think that's what I was missing. I think I needed a little bit of a sip of water, I'm not going to lie, y'all. Let's see what these cigarettes look like, though. I have not seen a single image of what the Marlboro Cowboy Cut cigarettes look out of the packaging. This is first impression all the way through. I have no idea what these are going to look like. What are they going to look like out of the packaging? We've got a longer cork style filter than not. What are we looking at? What are we looking at? Oh. That's kind of anticlimactic. All right. Yep. I was expecting there to be some sort of Cowboy Cut unique thing going on with the cigarettes or something like that kind of thing, but not the case. Not the case. Some mid-range budget cigarettes, they like to put a lot of effort into their branding and everything like that kind of thing on the cigarette itself. They're like, yes, we want not only our brand on the cigarette, we want like the specific variety of the cigarette on there because we're going to put this color for the branding and everything like that kind of thing. On this cigarette, they were like, yeah, just slap Marlboro on there in black. Really low effort, not much going on kind of thing. I think it would have been cool to, see some sort of like custom filter or something like that kind of thing. What the hell? Do I have a tick on me? Get the hell out of here. Oh my God, was that a tick? Wow. I have not had a tick like on me in a fat minute. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I think that tick, like I didn't even notice it. It was just on my finger right there. Did it drop down? Was it a drop tick? I have no idea. It's like drop bears, but drop ticks. Oh my goodness. That tick was trying to bite me. Hopefully it didn't actually bite me or anything like that kind of thing. I'm not trying to get allergic to red meat. I do like my steak. I have never had problems with ticks on where I'm sitting right now. I'll admit, I've never had a tick come at me or crawl up my pant leg or anything like that ever when I'm outside where I am right now before. That is kind of crazy, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I mean, like, I've gone hiking and I've had ticks afterwards and stuff like that kind of thing. I'm like, you're going hiking, you're going through the brush and everything like that. You might get ticks kind of thing. Out here on the porch, I have been hearing news articles saying that ticks are really bad this year. And, I think the news articles were right. And I think I've just proved their point, honestly, because I just had a tick come at me. I'm pretty sure that was a tick. I'm pretty sure that wasn't like something that was just on my finger and then it flew off. That thing tried to grab onto me and bite me kind of thing. That's kind of crazy. Well, I got completely distracted though. I ain't trying to get allergic to no red meat though. I do like my steak. So I'm gonna have to be careful and check myself for ticks later. Yes. Good to know that the ticks are out here, that is for sure. Usually it's just mosquitoes out here, and I guess my bug repellent ain't repelling no ticks. It is meant for mosquitoes and gnats after all, not ticks, so that does make sense. But, what was I saying? I got completely distracted. I was just like, what is this thing doing on me? Yeah, no, what was I saying? This as a whole, in my opinion, very low effort. You know, a lot of the cigarettes we see from Marlboro internationally have cool, unique filter designs and everything like that kind of thing. And I think they could have done something really cool with the filter on this cigarette. I mean, like, they're calling it the Cowboy Cut. They're trying to harken back to the Marlboro Man. They could do a design on this cork-style filter that makes it look like Utah or the Wild West. Excuse me. They could have done some design that really harkened back to the Marlboro Man, but they didn't. They were just like, yep, cork-style filter, Marlboro right there. It's just low effort kind of thing. I haven't had a Marlboro Red in a fat minute. Maybe this is what they're looking like. I cannot remember. But, yeah, I think they could have done so much with this cigarette, but they just didn't. And, you know, I see a lot more effort put into the presentation of cigarettes from other mid-range budget cigarette brands, and obviously Marlboro, they don't want to invest a lot into the Cowboy Cut line, I suppose probably because they don't know if it's going to work out or not, and so as such, they have done, to a degree, kind of the bare minimum in my personal opinion when it comes to the design of this cigarette itself. Now, I'm not trying to say that this cigarette looks bad by any means. It's a classic look by all means. You know, we get a longer than not cork style filter because this is a 100 size cigarette, and below the cork style filter we get the Marlboro logo itself right there in black. So, you know, it's telling us that this is indeed a Marlboro cigarette, and we are also being told that this is indeed a full-flavored 100 cigarette due to the cork-style paper and the size of the filter, but there's no distinguishing branding other than that kind of thing, which is kind of a disappointment, I'm not gonna lie. It is what it is, though. It is what it is, though. But, yep. Medium to light, cork-style filter, Marlboro branding right there. Below that, we just get normal white cigarette paper with horizontal lines going all the way across. And overall, that's really all that's going on with the look of this cigarette. Is there any perforation on the filter? I am not sure. I feel like there might be, but I'm not sure if there actually is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my flashlight that I have right here. And I am just going to take a look real quick. Is there any perforation on the filter? Let us take a look very quickly. I don't believe there is any perforation on the filter. And so that is telling me, wow, I think normal Marlboro Reds, the normal mainline ones, have a line of perforation on the filter. So if these don't, yeah, I'm not, unless the perforation is so small that I literally can't see it even under flashlight, but I'm not seeing anything that would make me think there's a line of perforation. Usually there's something that makes me think that, but no. Well, we'll find out once I actually... Just trying to turn my flashlight off. There we go. We'll find out whether there's a line of perforation on it once I actually get to smoking. Flashbang myself just a little bit there. It's okay, though. It's okay, though. But, yeah, no line of perforation on this filter. That is very interesting, if I do say so myself. And we can see the general blend itself is very much that of a medium blend in my personal opinion. There's some light aspects, some dark aspects, but more so than not, that of a medium blend. I think it looks a little bit darker on camera than not, just due to the fact that the lighting behind me is a little bit different than what I'm actually looking at in front of me. But yeah, more of a medium blend than not in real life. And yeah, very surprising to see no perforation on the filter of this cigarette, just simply because I think the normal Marlboro Reds have perforation. So that's telling me that this one is probably going to be a little bit of a tighter draw. It's going to be less airy, and it might be a little bit harsher or a little bit smoother. Perforation can do two things. It can make cigarettes harsher, and it can make cigarettes smoother, depending on how it's utilized. I don't know how it's going to be not utilized in this scenario, but looking forward to finding out. Looking forward to finding out. Well, that's really all there was to the look of this cigarette overall. I want to find out what it smells like now, so I'm going to get another fresh cigarette out of the pack, and we are going to go ahead and smell this real quick. And overall, I'm getting very much that of a smell like, in my opinion, Marlboros. I'm getting a pretty standard American blend cigarette type of smell. Very much that of a, I would say, chocolate, nutty tobacco scent, in my personal opinion. Yeah, I would say I'm very much getting that of a sort of slightly creamy, milky, chocolatey, slightly hazelnut, nutty scent. So yeah, overall, kind of smells like a Heath bar in my personal opinion. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. Yeah, very much that of a chocolatey, nutty, milk chocolatey, nutty scent overall. These cigarettes smell very good if you ask me. They do smell very good. Well, I'm gonna go and put this cigarette back real quick. I'm gonna take another sip of water, and then after that, we are gonna go ahead and actually get to smoking my first ever Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100, I do think. And we're gonna find out just how they are, what they're like, and what I think of them, based off this one experience at least. So let's get my lighter out of my pocket, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get to smoking, and let's go ahead and grab myself a thumbnail for the, thumbnail of the video as well. Yes, sir, you know what I'm saying? Well, hopefully one of those will do as a thumbnail for the video. Right off the bat, the quality from this cigarette, it's okay. It's okay. It's kind of tasting like a combination between a Marlboro Red and a mid-range budget cigarette that isn't the greatest quality, in my personal opinion. And I can say with certainty right off the bat that this is not the highest quality mid-range budget cigarette. In my opinion, there are mid-range budget cigarettes that are higher quality than normal mainline Marlboros, which are already not that great of quality. And this is, in my opinion, not as good of quality as normal mainline Marlboro Reds. I mean, like, it's fine, but that's about all it is. But the second biggest thing I'm noticing is that there really is no perforation on the filter of this cigarette. The draw itself, right off the bat, is surprisingly heavy. The draw is definitely surprisingly heavy from this cigarette. I'm not gonna lie, usually on packs of 100 cigarettes, even if the short cigarette doesn't have a line of perforation, usually the 100 cigarette will have a line of perforation. But this is a 100 cigarette with no perforation at all. And so due to the length of it, the draw of the cigarette is a little bit heavier than not kind of thing, and due to the length of the filter as well. The airflow itself is perfectly fine. This cigarette is burning at a normal rate that I would expect from Marlboros. But the draw itself is a little bit heavier than not, and we can see no perforation in the tar spread of the cigarette as well. There's no white bits around the filter itself, and so we can say for sure that there is no perforation. Yeah, the quality overall is just okay. The quality overall is just okay. I've been smoking pretty high quality cigarettes these days. I've been smoking a bunch of American Spirits. I've been smoking a bunch of Brazilian Paieros as well, kind of thing, both of which are very high quality. This does not live up to that by any means. It's marginally better than something like, let's say, an L&M or a Pall Mall, in my personal opinion, and I think that's the precise goal. Not to be as good of quality as the normal mainline Marlboro Reds, because, of course, why would anybody buy them if they did that? But they do also want to be slightly better quality than the slightly lower priced Pall Malls and L&Ms and stuff like that. Just had a mosquito come at me. I'm gonna make sure this is still working. This is still working. Put this down on the ground. Mosquitoes, it is turning into evening right now, so I guess I'm not terribly surprised that mosquitoes are not particularly friendly as of this moment in time. Evening is the worst hour for mosquitoes, I do suppose. But yeah, this first cigarette, in all honesty, has burned so quickly that I've just been smoking it and thinking about how it is rather than actually saying anything. So I do think I will have to have another one and really determine how this cigarette is at that point. One interesting thing to note is that, at least for the 100s, the draw itself does not actually really get all that much lighter towards the end. For a lot of cigarettes with no perforation, due to the ambers itself getting closer to the filter, the draw does to some extent get lighter towards the end. And don't get me wrong, it's gotten a little bit lighter towards the end, but not in any major way. This cigarette definitely, though, I can say, gets a little bit rough, a little bit tarry towards the end. And, yeah, a little bit rough and a little bit hot. Not helped by the fact that I am chaining hits, though. But let's see where the filter actually starts. I'm going to get the rest of the tobacco out of the filter. So the filter itself is a little bit smaller than you would think it is. The filter itself starts right about there, where my index finger is on the top of the cigarette filter, starts right about there. And the filter itself is, I would say, made of two parts. They've taken a normal cigarette filter down here, which is, yeah, I would say this filter is made of two parts, maybe two interconnected parts, but two parts nonetheless, which is very interesting. Okay. Interesting. I want to get the filter itself out, which is not something I normally do, but I have a sneaking suspicion that this may actually be a charcoal filtered cigarette, and I want proof as to whether this actually is or is not. So I'm just going to get the filter out real quick, just to see if it actually is a charcoal filtered cigarette or if it's just my eyes deceiving me. Because I saw some black bits in the top of the filter right there, and I was thinking that might be charcoal, and that this could be a charcoal filtered cigarette, but it does not appear to be. I think that was just my eyes deceiving me, and I think I just got my hopes up just a little bit. And actually, this is not a filter made of two parts. It is just one long filter. It is just one long filter. It's just that the front of the filter got so mushy that it felt like it was two parts. But yes, it's all just one filter, as we can see. But yeah, overall, no perforation in any way, shape, or form. The filter itself gets a little bit mushy as you continue smoking. And, pretty interesting, though, for these to not have a line of perforation on the filter. Very, very, very interesting that they're going for a little bit more of a heavy draw with this cigarette when compared to the normal Marlboro Reds and normal Marlboro Red 100s, which do have lines of perforation on them. So that's definitely an interesting choice for them to have made. I do suppose, without further ado, I should probably go ahead and get another cigarette out, and I should probably go ahead and get back to smoking, though, so I can really determine what these cigarettes are actually like fully, as I didn't really do that with the last smoke. The body itself, due to the decreased draw, is smoke-wise a little bit smaller than not, and also not super dense. Denser than it would be if there was a line of perforation on this filter, for sure. But overall, the body of this cigarette, in my opinion, is a moderate to low density, and it's a smaller body than not due to the draw itself. The draw of this cigarette, especially at the very beginning, is very much that of a heavier draw than not, almost to the point of being an American Spirit draw. Now, I don't think that's something you're going to experience from the normal king-size variety of these cigarettes by any means, but for the 100s, at the very beginning, you do almost get an American Spirit-like heavy draw. Not quite as heavy as American Spirits, but it's up there for sure. That draw, I would definitely have to say, at the beginning, it's a heavier draw, goes to more of a heavy to medium draw towards the very end, though. But definitely a heavier draw at the very beginning. Perfectly fine airflow. These cigarettes burn at about the pace I would expect from a pack of Marlboros, if not actually a little bit quicker. There's definitely, in my opinion, some accelerants in this cigarette, if you ask me. And overall, roughness and smoothness-wise, I would say that these are around about an 8 out of 10. They definitely do have some roughness to them, I think intentionally so. They want that sort of rustic experience, a little bit of a rougher experience from these cigarettes, and these are definitely a little bit rougher than not, even when compared to the normal mainline Marlboros, in my personal opinion. And strength-wise, I would say that these are a little bit lighter than normal mainline Marlboros. Being more of a heavy medium cigarette, more along the lines of the Marlboro Red labels than the actual normal mainline Marlboro Reds, if you ask me. So these are just a little bit lighter than normal Marlboro Reds, but not insane, not to an insane level by any means. And taste-wise, overall, I am getting that of a chemical, additive, flavoring taste with very much out of a sweet-sour flavor. And I am getting some of what I smelled in the cigarettes. Don't get me wrong, I am getting a little bit of that sort of milk chocolate with a little bit of that nuttiness kind of thing. And it combines to make that of a semi-sweet, milk chocolate, sort of hazelnut nutty, American blend cigarette flavor overall. But really the main distracting factor of the taste for me is just the fact that I really can taste a little bit of chemical, I really can taste a little bit of additive, and I can definitely say that while in my personal opinion, the Marlboro Reds, the normal mainline Marlboro Reds are way overpriced for what they are. That's my personal take. I genuinely really do think the normal mainline Marlboro Reds are way overpriced for what they are. This is much more equivalently priced for the quality you get, in my personal opinion, but it's still not a great quality cigarette. Within the same price range, if not cheaper, you can get a pack of Senecas, and those are almost as good of quality as American Spirits for being probably less expensive than these, in all honesty, just harder to find. Yeah, they're okay. The new Marlboro Red Cowboy Cuts, they're okay. I'll smoke the rest of the pack, no issue, but they're just okay in my personal opinion. Not anything crazy, not anything super duper good quality by any means, just a mid-range budget cigarette that tastes like a Marlboro, is a Marlboro, but is of equivalent quality to other mid-range budget cigarettes. These are of marginally better quality than Pall Malls and L&M's, in my personal opinion, and of less quality than the normal mainline Marlboros, but at a lesser price. Yeah. They're okay. If you're looking for a cheap pack of cigarettes to smoke, the Marlboro Cowboy Cut lines, if you want a pack of Marlboros, it's not a bad choice, but you can get a better quality cigarette for cheaper, in all honesty. So as with all other Marlboro branded cigarettes these days, in my personal opinion, these are running on the name. These would be nothing special, these would be nothing crazy if they weren't a pack of Marlboros. There would be no hype around these if these were not a pack of Marlboros, in my personal opinion. You can get an equivalent experience from an L&M, from a Pall Mall, from a Montego. You get a better experience from a pack of Senecas. Yeah. If it wasn't a pack of Marlboros, and if it wasn't a new variety of Marlboros, there would be no hype around them, frankly put. Yeah, they're okay. They're okay. Nothing crazy. I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm going to have another one, because I feel like there might be something to the flavor that I missed. But overall, the draw, definitely a little bit heavier than not, in my personal opinion. Starts off as that of a heavy draw, when then it goes to sort of a medium heavy draw as you get towards the very bottom. The airflow itself is perfectly fine, though. So the heavy draw itself is being caused by the long filter and by the lack of perforation on that long filter, to say what I want to say correctly. And yeah, so heavy draw at the beginning caused by the long filter and lack of perforation, perfectly fine airflow. The body itself is smaller than not airy by any means, but a smaller body than not. Roughness and smoothness wise, I would have to say a 7 or 8 out of 10. I would have to say probably an 8 out of 10. I would have to say, yeah, probably an 8 out of 10 roughness-wise, and a 7 out of 10 strength-wise. And yeah. Overall, in regards to strength, they're pretty equivalent to the Marlboro Red labels, in my opinion, and to the Pall Mall Reds and L&M Reds. They're pretty equivalent in strength to both of those. And the Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100s, they burn very, very, very quickly as well. Super fast, if I do say so myself. There's definitely accelerants in the cigarettes, no question in my mind, kind of thing. And there's definitely a little bit of a chemical flavor going on as well. So you can definitely tell those are there in the taste of them. Overall, they're okay, but generally I'm getting my words jumbled up. Generally, they're okay, but I'm generally unimpressed. They're nothing special. The Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100, they're nothing special. Do I think they're a rebrand of another cigarette that I've tried previously? I haven't tried any other cigarettes from Marlboro or from other Philip Morris brands that have an equivalent flavor and way of smoking as the new Marlboro Red Cowboy Cuts. And so while I can't say with certainty that they are not a simple rebrand of another cigarette from Philip Morris, there is a possibility that that is the case, but I am more inclined to think that that's not the case. And if that is the case, it's from a variety that has been off the market for some time now. They're okay. They're okay. And they don't meet my expectations. And they don't seem to be exactly like any other cigarettes I've tried so far. So at least, the silver lining is that they might not just be a simple rebrand of a Pall Mall or an L&M or something like that kind of thing. L&M is owned by Philip Morris, so it would be an L&M, not a Pall Mall, because that's R.J. Reynolds, if I remember correctly. They're okay, though. I'm going to have another one, though. Overall, flavor-wise, in my opinion, now that I have really sort of smoked them to a decent degree, that chemical flavor is still very much there, but I am also now noticing the flavoring aspects that they put onto the tobacco itself, and I am also noticing just the actual flavor of the tobacco itself as well. I would have to say quality-wise, these are an in-between between the Marlboro Blacks and the Marlboro Red labels. And that's where they're kind of positioned price-wise as well, I do think. These might actually be cheaper than the Marlboro Blacks these days, though. I'm not exactly sure. I don't buy those very often. Yeah. Okay. Overall, these certainly aren't the worst thing in the world. And while they're certainly not as good as other equivalently priced cigarettes that I've tried so far, they're also certainly not the worst. These are right in the middle, if not on the slightly higher end kind of thing of quality for the price range, I'll admit. But they're nothing that I'm particularly impressed by. But on my third cigarette, I do find myself having a better impression of them than I did with the first two. Okay. All right. And the more I smoke, the more I notice that sort of nutty flavor kind of thing. I do think that these might be a bit more nutty than I thought they were at the beginning. There's definitely still that milk chocolate sort of flavor in there, no question in my mind, but that nuttiness is definitely also in there. And overall, I would say the flavor of the Marlboro Red Cowboy Cuts cigarettes is very much that of a mildly sweet, sour, bitter flavor with an undertone of chemical, additive, and a little bit of added flavoring onto the tobacco as well. You can definitely tell there's been a little bit of added flavoring on there. In my opinion, some sort of probably coca or chocolate flavoring. And as far as the true flavor profile goes, it's very much that of a mildly sweet, slightly bitter milk chocolate with an undertone of a nutty, slightly creamy hazelnut flavor. And that's very much what the flavor of the Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100s is like. That's what the flavor of these cigarettes is like, in my personal opinion, to say it once and for all. Roughness and smoothness wise, I would still put these at like an 8 out of 10 on roughness. It's a pretty low 8 out of 10 though, almost being a 7 out of 10. And I would have to say strength-wise, definitely with this third cigarette. The first two really didn't do too much to me, but with the third one, definitely feeling a little bit buzzed. And I would definitely have to say very much that of a, mid 7 out of 10 strength-wise. Of equivalent strength to a Marlboro Red label in my personal opinion. But definitely weaker than a Marlboro Black. And definitely slightly weaker than a normal mainline Marlboro Red as well. Overall, final thoughts on the Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100s. What are my final thoughts on these cigarettes right here? Are they something I would buy again? Are they something that I would enjoy the rest of the pack of? And are they something that I feel like was worth the money? I'm going to go and start off with the second question first. Am I going to enjoy smoking the rest of the pack? Yeah, I'm going to smoke the rest of the pack. Will I enjoy smoking the rest of the pack? They're okay. This is not a cigarette that personally I would buy on any routine basis, just simply because they're not high enough quality for my personal preferences. And in regards of other cigarettes priced equivalently, I do think there are cigarettes that are priced at a equivalent price, if not lower, that are higher quality than these, in my personal opinion. So if I was looking for a cigarette in the price range that these fill, I would probably, if I had the opportunity, buy a better quality pack of cigarettes that I know of instead. But if I was just running by a store that didn't really have much in regards to what I was looking for, they didn't have a crazy big cigarette selection, and what they had in regards to mid-range budget price cigarettes was these, along with, let's say Marlboro Red labels, Marlboro Blacks, and let's say Pall Malls and L&M's. I would choose this pack of cigarettes over a pack of Pall Malls and L&M's. Let me just put it that way. I would personally choose this pack over a pack of Pall Mall or L&M's. But they're okay. I think that's a good way of putting it. They're okay. They're nothing crazy. There's other cigarettes that are better in the same price range. They're not the best in the Marlboro lineup by any means. I don't think they're designed to be the best in the Marlboro lineup. That is supposed to go to a higher price Marlboro, of course. In the Marlboro lineup, they're better quality, in my opinion, than Marlboro Blacks. And I think they taste better than Marlboro Blacks as well, personally speaking. But they are also weaker and they're also smoother. And I think they're really meant to fill a gap between the Marlboro Blacks and the Marlboro Red labels. And I think that's what I think that's what they're here for, frankly. But I think that's why they've been brought onto the market. Mid-range budget price cigarette from Marlboro. Can't say I'm terribly surprised, but these very much are running on the name. As with all Marlboros these days, in my personal opinion, they are not running on the price. They're not running on their quality. They're running on their name. Marlboro is the most recognizable cigarette brand name across the entire world. And these cigarettes, like every other pack of Marlboros these days, are running on the name. Yes, I would buy this pack, again, over a pack of Pall Malls or L&Ms if I had no other choice in the matter. But when push comes to shove, they're just all right cigarettes that I would much rather buy an alternative that's better quality instead of this pack. And while I am going to smoke the rest of the Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100s, am I going to truly enjoy smoking the rest of the pack? Not really. I'm just going to smoke the rest of the pack to not waste them and to not waste my money. Yeah, they're okay cigarettes. I'll smoke the rest of the pack. And overall, I think they deserve a solid 6 out of 10. I think a 6 out of 10 is deserving for them. They're not the worst thing in the world. They're not horrible. They're not bad. I wouldn't describe them as being bad, but they're just okay. They're just okay, and they're just slightly better than other products in the same product category that I've mentioned previously, but they're not as good as some other products in the same product category. They're just okay. They're just okay. And for that reason, I'm giving these right here a 6 out of 10. Yes, the Marlboro Red Cowboy Cut 100s are getting a 6 out of 10 from me. And yeah, that's my rating for the pack. And I think that's just about all I had to say for this video today. If you guys have tried the Marlboro Red Cowboy Cuts or any of the other Marlboro Cowboy Cut line of cigarettes in the past, let me know what you guys think of them in the comments down below, and also make sure to like and subscribe as well. And of course, don't forget to check out my new poetry book, Poems to Read While Smoking Cigarettes, available now on Amazon for $14.99. You can find the link to my new poetry book in the comments and description down below, along with on screen as well. Make sure to go check it out, and make sure to have a great rest of y'all's day. Appreciate y'all watching, and until the next one, stay safe and peace, and have a great one.